All right, let's talk about the Detroit Red Wings. They're kind of an up and coming team. I projected them to miss the playoffs. I projected Ottawa to also miss the playoffs, but I projected Detroit finished behind Ottawa. They finished sixth in the Atlantic Division, beating out Buffalo and Montreal. Here's the thing. Detroit got better. They didn't get a lot better, but they got better. I think they'll be competitive, probably up until the very end, competing for some type of wild card position. I think they're good. I think they're getting there. I don't think they're a playoff team just yet. And let's kind of dive into it. So these are just the projected depth charts and lines from Cap Friendly. Probably not going to reflect what actually happens. It might start the season. I didn't really hate the lines, honestly. First line, you got Larkin centering Bertuzzi and Raymond. Raymond coming into a second year. Larkin still young, just had a career year. Bertuzzi looks great, talented player. It's a good first line. Second line, you have Kopp centering Jacob Vrana and David Perron. Perron's a newcomer, so is Kopp. Kopp's a fantastic second line center. Vrana is a 20 goal scorer at the very least. He just needs to stay healthy. He can never stay healthy. It's funny that Mantha Vrana trade between the Capitals and Red Wings, hasn't really worked for either team. Both players are just consistently injured. Both are great players. But if Vrana stays healthy, he's a fantastic player. Perron, I think at this point in his career, the thing is he's more of a third-line player. He scores all of his goals essentially on the power play. He's great on the power play. If he's on the power play, the first unit, he's a 20-goal scorer. If he's not, he's definitely not a 20-goal scorer on even strength ice. Definitely more suited for our third line. Great player, brings a lot of drive, a lot of energy, throws a big hit, does what he needs to do to change the course of a game. Not a second line center. If you look into his stats, don't be too high on Perron. He's 34, still got game left. Not a second liner. Third line, you have Dominic Kubalik, centered by Pius Suter, and Philip Zadina on that right wing. Zadina, again, only 22 years old, still has a lot of time to kind of show he can play at an AHL level and be a top six forward in the future. It could come, he might have his breakout year this year, it might not come. Nonetheless, you keep developing him, keep playing him, keep switch lines with him. I think there's a lot of potential with Zadina. I want to see it. Him actually produce on the score sheet. Fourth line's kind of interesting. You got Adam Ernie on that left wing, who is, a fourth liner at this point in his career. Rasmussen, he looked fantastic last year. Well, maybe not fantastic, but he looked very good, and he looks like he's poised for a promising NHL career. I'd actually be surprised to see him finish the season on the fourth line. I don't even know if he'll be on the fourth line to start the season. He also plays left wing. Sundqvist can play center, so you don't have to worry about replacing your fourth line center. Maybe you swap someone around, or maybe Vrana goes out. Maybe it's an opportunity for Rasmussen to play on that second or third line, depending on who goes where. I like him a lot. More NHL experience will be good for him. I think he's going to build off of what he had last year. Definitely plays above fourth line stats. Sundqvist, again, injuries. He's a good player. He can play well. Probably a third line player if he plays a consistent healthy season. But I think he played like 21 games or something last year. Really? Let me double check that. That sounds... There's no way. Okay. He played 18 games for Detroit. He played 41 games with St. Louis. Played 28 games the year prior. Okay. So, still, he produced well for Detroit last year. Probably should be a third liner. Nonetheless, Cap Friendly has him on the fourth line. I think it's a great fourth line. You got Joe Veleno, great young player. Still needs to prove he can play at an NHL level, play with an NHL, caliber skill set. Still young, still got time to prove that. Maybe he'll see, what did he play? 68 games in the NHL last year. Maybe we still see, 60 to 70 games in the NHL from Veleno. Or maybe he's sent back down to the Grand Rapid Griffins to develop a little more. We'll see. Kid's got a lot of skill, plays really well at the AHL level when he has. You just want that to translate to NHL success, which he's yet to do. Still young. Givani Smith, I like Givani Smith a lot. Kind of a fringe top 12 forward. Depth forward at this point. Still young, but, depth forward. Same with Zarnik. Zarnik's definitely a depth forward. Zarnik's not really a fringe. He's more of a high, top pairing AHL player at this point, but has NHL experience and can hop into, a fourth line role should he need to be and perform decently. Berggren, recent draft pick. We could see him make an appearance this year. He's had really good development stats. That would be a fun surprise. If he gets into the lineup and produces right away, all of a sudden the forward group is looking a lot more dangerous, especially if Rasmussen gets it going, Zadina figures it out, Suter builds on last year, and Veleno figures it out. There's a lot that could go right for Detroit this year if certain players kind of have that NHL success. So there's room for optimism in the future. It's just, when are we going to see these players break out and start to begin their NHL careers essentially? So a lot of my questions are with the forward group. You have a decent top six. Second line's concerning. You got a third liner on the wing. You got Vrana, who's a great top six forward, can't stay healthy. You got potential on the third line. You got Rasmussen and Sundqvist on the fourth line. Your bottom six is probably better than average. Your top six is probably average. Now keep in mind, this is in the Atlantic Division. The Atlantic Division is very difficult. You have your top four powerhouse teams essentially, the two Florida teams and whoever, Toronto and Boston. They're likely to make the playoffs. You got Ottawa, which probably has one of the best top sixes in the entire league. It's a tough division. It's a very tough division. It'd be cool to see Detroit push for a wild card spot and get it. It's been a long time. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing the Detroit Red Wings in a playoff position. But I think they're building towards that. I don't think they're quite there yet, but they're making progress, and they'll get there soon enough. And they have a lot of key building blocks in place. The Steve Yzerman plan, right? Their general manager. They'll be good in the future. It's just getting there. I don't think they're going to get there this year. I think there's a lot of hype around this team. I don't know why there's a lot of hype around David Perron signing here. He's good. He adds something to the team. There's no doubting that. I've been a huge David Perron fan for years, with the Ducks, with the Blues, a few times. Plays on edge. He's definitely, can play a rough game, kind of play between the lines there, but he's fun to watch. He plays with heart. He loves the game. He loves his team. I'm a big David Perron fan, but I don't know if I'd have him on the third line or on the second line at this point. We'll see. You really hope Zadina can just come in with a bang, figure it out, and be that second line right wing to start the season. You hope. We haven't seen it yet. We're hoping. Defense is still pretty young. You have Seider on that top pairing. I think with Ben Sherratt, it actually should be a decent pairing. Seider's very good defensively. Sherratt has been known to kind of get lost in the offensive zone and not come back and be defensively responsible at times. But Sherratt can play good defense when he needs to. There's a lot of ifs with Sherratt's game. He's a good player. Definitely a top four defenseman. I really like the second line, though. Olli Maatta is a great defenseman, very underrated pickup. And Filip Hronek, he's still young. He's developing. It looks like he gets better with every game that passes. I really like their second line. We'll see. Maatta might come up and play that first line with Seider. Seider's kind of the anchor for that first line. He can provide offense. He can provide defense, which is incredibly rare from a defensive player that young. Really impressive young player. So I think that gives you a lot of options if you're the the coach of the Red Wings. You got Osterley and Lindstrom on that third line pairing. They're all right, third line pairing, standard. I like Lindstrom. I like his game. But they have options too. They have Pysyk. Pysyk's pretty much an offensive defenseman. Can play the wing. Depth player at this point. Robert Haig. I've liked Robert Haig's game at times. What are you playing, Buffalo? He's looked good. He hasn't looked like he's a top. He's definitely not a top 4 D-man. He's a questionable top 6 D-man depending on the team and the year. Question marks with Haig, but what is he, like 27? He's still youngish. He's a decent player. Great depth forward to have, or depth defenseman to have. I think Edvinsson makes an appearance this year, and I think he's going to fit in well. He's going to look great. His development stats are phenomenal. They're off the charts. I'd be surprised if we don't see Edvinsson play this year. Same with Bergeron. I think we see Bergeron this year, but Edvinsson, no doubt, should make an appearance and should fit in seamlessly. Again, there's a lot of young players that could come in and make a big difference for this team, but we haven't necessarily seen that yet. Besides Raymond and Seider. We've seen it progress over the years. My apologies, I may have misspoke. We've seen Bertuzzi come up. We've seen Larkin come up. We've seen P.S. Suter come up. So they're getting there. There's still a lot more pieces that need to be added to the equation to make the playoffs and have playoff success. They're getting there. And you also got Wallman as a depth defenseman. Goaltending, I actually don't hate it. Ville Husso had a fantastic regular season, right? Great regular season. Gets traded to Detroit. Questionable in the playoffs, but that's all right. Goaltending can be random at times. Nedeljkovic coming off a not so great year. Defense wasn't all that great in front of him last year. That's not an excuse for his numbers, but essentially the year before he had a great year in Florida. Came to Detroit, had an okay year. Husso had a great year last year. Comes to Detroit, may have an okay year. But that's okay. These are both young, very, very promising goaltenders who have had NHL success. We'll see if one breaks through or if it's going to be more of a 50-50 split in net, 1A, 1B scenario. But I think both of these guys, one of these two guys at the very least is likely going to be a consistent NHL starter for years to come. Who is it? We don't know because goaltending can be random. But these are two fantastic pieces in net if you're still in the process of figuring that out. Two very good contracts, two very tradable contracts too. If Husso doesn't work out, it's like trade deadline time, and Husso has like an 870 save percentage through like 35 games played and just looks awful. It's still a tradable contract, right? You're not paying an arm and a leg for him. Same with Nedeljkovic. Nedeljkovic follows up with a rough year, and Husso's the clear number 1. It's still a tradable contract. These are both young goaltenders. So Detroit's progressing in the right direction. I like their progress. It's been slow and steady, for sure. It's got to be frustrating for Detroit fans not to see playoff hockey. I'm sorry. All those years of success, you're getting there. But once this is all said and done, this long-term rebuild, this is going to be a sustainable playoff team. And by the looks of it anyway, I'm saying that now, and we could get 3 years down the line and they make the playoffs all 3 years, and that's it. It's easy to predict the future. Whether that comes true or not is a whole different story. But Larkin's the captain. Larkin's been a great he was a great captain last year. He brings that even keel leadership, which is very nice. You got a lot of young players, and typically with young players comes egos as well. Larkin's not an older player either, so it's nice to have some of that humbling. Perron, not a big ego guy in the locker room. Has a big ego on the ice against the other team. but that's part of the game. So does Marchand, right? But Marchand is like one of the best teammates you can have in the league. Really, the heart and soul of the Boston Bruins over there. Perron's similar. I don't think he's on the level of a Marchand who could be the next Bruins captain. But Perron is a fantastic person to have in that locker room. They got options. They're looking good. They're set for the future. Don't think they're going to make the playoffs. Don't think they're going to beat Ottawa. Don't think they're going to beat Panthers, the Lightning, the Maple Leafs, the Bruins this year in the standings. But I think they fight, and they fight till the end. Raymond, we should see him not tire out halfway through the season this year. We shouldn't see any tail-offs from some of the veteran players that were rookies in recent years that we did see tail-offs from. It's a good team. This will be a conversation we'll revisit next year, and they'll probably finish above 6th place next year, if not this year, assuming everything goes right. So that's my little spiel on the Red Wings. I don't cover a lot of Red Wings stuff. It's I don't catch a lot of Red Wings games, and when I do, it's like there's always like a bunch of new players in there, and like, oh, these are prospects, and then so I don't keep a whole lot of I don't keep really updated on the Red Wings as much as other teams. So I wanted to dive into it. I wanted to look at the numbers. I wanted to look at the prospects, how they're developing, all that stuff, and it's fun to look at. And I do this all for the my preseason standings predictions, but it's just kind of putting it all into words and on a board, and kind of explaining why I pick certain teams to finish where. I might do Ottawa next, because I picked Ottawa to miss the playoffs. They're more straightforward. My concern with them is just their defense. My concern with the Red Wings is the development of these young players. A lot of them are still too young and still need to develop a little more. And they'll get there. I just don't think they're there yet. So 2 very different teams in different scenarios, but both up and coming. All right. Let me know if you have any questions, if you disagree with anything. I don't know if you have any more insight as to what the lines will look like. These looked pretty consistent with what we saw last year. Rasmussen, I'm sure, will not be a 4th liner all season. Sundqvist, we may see move to the 3rd line. Zadina, depending on how he plays, may move to that 4th line. Wouldn't be the first time that's happened. Copp, Suter, we'll see what happens. All right, thanks for watching, guys. Appreciate it. Take care.